Welcome to the No Code MBA Show podcast. In this episode, I speak with Torben Schultz, the founder of Rose.com. You're going to learn how Torben started the company, how they acquired the domain name Rose.com, and how much money they spent to acquire it, how they're using AI inside their product, and the future of AI inside of companies. If you want to learn how to build your own AI and no-code products, go to nocode.mba and use the promo code podcast10 for 10% off your No Code MBA membership. Let's go ahead and get into this episode. Well, thank you, Torben, so much for joining the podcast. I'm really excited to catch up with you and learn more about what you've been building at Rose. I think to start, it could be helpful for listeners just to hear from you, what Rose is, how you, decided to start the company and just kind of give a quick overview of the story of starting Rose.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Seth, for having me and really excited to be here. So, Rose is a modern spreadsheet with integration. So we have a super easy data import. We have an AI analyst to analyze your data, and we have a more Notion-like interface. So you can, we have the concept of a page. You can share your data on mobile really easily and prettily. And you can also embed your data and your spreadsheets into other platforms very easily. So that's, I would say, how I would describe it. The way we started out was in our last company, my co-founder, Umberto, and I were using spreadsheets a lot. We were actually running a food tech company, and we used Google Sheets as kind of an early ERP system. So for, inventory management and order management and production planning and all this stuff. But we ran into some issues with it, of course. And then Umberto had thought a lot about the problem of spreadsheets, how they work, etc. Said, well, we can probably build something better and more modern. We started researching on Stack Overflow and Quora and so on, what people want to do with spreadsheets. Initially, we went a lot into the problem of like messaging, sending emails, sending SMS, and so on. Those were the first integrations that we built into our spreadsheet platform. But then over time, it really evolved into a more collaborative product. And now what people are doing is they're using it more for reporting. Yeah.
How did you get the Rose.com domain name? That's something that I've always been curious about. Whenever I see like a one-word domain like that, I'm always curious about the story.
Yeah, so we weren't Rose or Rose.com all the time, right? So we actually started out as dash with dash.com for a couple of years. But then we thought that, we had the idea of rebranding anyway, because we found our brand a little bit too technical, how it appeared. And we wanted to become like a mass productivity product, a spreadsheet that is for everyone. You can do very powerful stuff with Rose, but you can also do kind of, easy tables and use Rose the way people use spreadsheets. So we wanted to have a more friendly, more approachable, more easy to understand brand. And then we thought, okay, why not try to get like one of those premium domains? So we made kind of a short list or a list of domain names that were available and that we really liked. Once you get into kind of more serious conversations with these domain brokers, they also open up kind of their little treasure chests and offer you things that you usually don't see. And then we just looked at it, like what's the brand value that we perceive, what's the price, how can we negotiate it, is it trademarkable or not, and so on. And then Rose was by far the best bang for the buck compared to, the domain name price range is pretty wild. We ended up paying $110K for Rose.com. We also looked at domains that were 5 million or so, right? So the Rose.com it was.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. And thanks for sharing how much you spent on it too, because I think that that's also something that people are always curious about with those types of things. And honestly, I think that's a great deal for Rose.com. Like,
Yeah, we thought so. We thought so too, right? On the surface, it sounds like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money, no question about it. But a four-letter domain that means something that is somehow related to your product, a .com domain, and a domain never takes vacation, never gets sick. It's always there for you. So we thought it was worth it.
Yeah, totally. And I think even in this era where people have all sorts of different, domain endings like IO or co or a million other ones now, it's for some reason .com is still the default, and it seems like it's going to kind of continue that way. So yeah, that's cool. In terms of the typical use case that people are using Rose for, you mentioned kind of internal dashboards. What maybe percentage of your users are using it for that versus other use cases? Are people replacing Excel and Google Sheets with Rose? Is it something they're using in addition? Just to kind of give people a better understanding of how it fits in with their kind of software stack that they're using.
Sure. So, well, there are companies that completely replaced their spreadsheets with rows, right? But that is not the normal case. Well, anyone usually uses either Gmail or has some sort of Microsoft account and then also an MS Office license. So a spreadsheet is probably already there for you anyway. And if you want to ditch it, of course, use rows for everything. But the more normal case is that people replace it on a per use case basis. And well, a spreadsheet is a horizontal product, so people use it for all sorts of things. But the way I would talk about our use cases is the number one use case is really reporting. People like to import data either through we have Rows API. So people can just use that in order to import data into Rows, or we have HTTP requests as functions, get, put, post, etc. So you can, and we support for the more technical people, which I think your audience is, we support JSON also inside the spreadsheet and make it very easy to convert JSON to a spreadsheet range and back. And so people use that a lot, but also our native integrations. And there, especially, I would say the marketing integrations, like their marketing channels, Google Analytics, and so on, Facebook ads, that is used a lot. Then data warehouse integrations, BigQuery, Snowflake, etc. And then, well, for transformation, they use our AI features are quite popular. So we were the first spreadsheet in January to launch a native OpenAI integration that people use to transform data, or let's say categorization, sentiment analysis, even also content creation. But for reporting, it's more categorization, this sort of thing.
Yes.
And then they also use our AI analyst, which is a feature that answers your questions about your data before you ask them. And then we give you kind of crunch tables, pivot tables of sorts that you can generate in a click, right? You can also ask your custom questions, your own questions, and it will answer them. And then people visualize it, create a chart, and share it either in Rows. Rows sharing works well on mobile, or they embed it in a different platform, so like Notion, Confluence, or their websites, right? People like embedded charts, embedded calculators. That's kind of, reporting is the number one use case. And then I think there are certain parts of it that people use as a standalone thing. For example, conversions with OpenAI, with that integration, that's a very popular use case too. Enrichment, like we have domain enrichment with LinkedIn data about a company and so on. So these use cases are in popular jobs that people do with Rows too.
So basically taking data that you have in other sources, bringing it into Rose. Rose makes it really easy to do that. And I'm looking at your different integrations like Google Analytics, like you mentioned, Facebook ads, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn ads, Stripe, all of these different data sources. So you can easily bring it in, but then also transform that data, do what, modify that data, clean that data, and then turn it into analysis. Is that right overall?
Yeah, exactly. And then you mentioned all the marketing integrations. We also have CRM integrations. We have the data warehouse integrations, like custom web requests. Notion is an integration that has become very popular. Like I was surprised how many companies actually store data in Notion databases, but then Notion doesn't have good reporting functionality. They don't have good charts. The database are not very powerful for calculations and so on. So it's a good fit for Notion users too.
Yeah, that makes total sense. That I can attest that, like, having some databases in Notion, right? They're very simple, and there's not the ability to analyze that data very easily. So that makes a lot of sense. In terms of and something else that kind of stands out to me is pulling in ad data and paid ad data, and from the marketing perspective, just from my own use case, I would love to be able to more easily put that all into one place and then be able to actually analyze it. Is there an X Twitter ad integration for the ad data there? Do they have that as an option, or I imagine they might be lacking in that access currently?
So Twitter did a lot of changes to their APIs recently, right? And
yes.
And we could not support an ad integration anymore. Yeah. So we do have a Twitter integration. It's one of our premium integrations, but it allows you to search for tweets and to get follower counts and so on, right?
Yes, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I feel like it's things like that. I wouldn't be surprised if in the future maybe Twitter will open up some of those types of things again, because it, like, opening up their ad API kind of only makes sense to improve their experience for marketers. So hopefully they'll do that in the future.
I sure hope so.
Yeah. So moving on to AI, and I think, as we were talking before the call, I think the last time we spoke was 2 years ago, and the biggest probably just overall industry change since then is AI. So I'd love to hear from you both how it's maybe affecting your users, and you talked a little bit about this of kind of how people can use AI in the products, and maybe how that's changing the usage and maybe engagement that you're seeing with users in your product, and then we can talk about maybe the future of where you kind of see this going, and affecting kind of how you think about building the company.
Yeah. So, well, you're absolutely right. AI was the biggest change in the industry, but it was also the biggest change for us. We were not an AI company before ChatGPT came upon us. But it turns out that AI is incredibly powerful if you use it in the context of a spreadsheet. So we immediately jumped on this opportunity and we're the first to release that OpenAI integration. Actually, the way it works now in Rose is that we offer it to you as a premium integration, but keyless. That means you don't need a ChatGPT account or OpenAI account. You don't need an API key. We do everything for you, because if you use your own API keys, our users used to run into rate limiting issues a lot, and that really screwed the experience. So we made this much better for you and took all that kind of heavy lifting on our side. And now you can, if you want to use AI functions across a column of 10,000 rows or so, you can do so, and it just works super nicely. So that is the first thing that we did, and then we want to get deeper and deeper into using AI in a spreadsheet, and we thought that the highest value was actually in helping with data analysis. Yeah, so well, we all know the problem. We have like a database, or we have lots of data in a table, and then we want to make sense of it, and we start with maybe a pivot table or some VLOOKUP or some ifs functions or so if we're using a spreadsheet, and it's just cumbersome and takes a lot of trial and error. So therefore, we developed the first thing that we did was develop a feature that, well, given the types of data you have in your spreadsheet, we don't send the entire values. We only send metadata about your table. Given this metadata, what are the best questions that you can ask, and how can you answer that? Those questions, how can you deliver the answer in a spreadsheet understandable form, which is usually a function, right? And then we give you those quick insights and deep dives. Deep dives are crunch tables, pivot tables of sorts that provide analysis on top of the source data, and they're also dynamically connected through spreadsheet logic to the source data, right? And now, we brought this on the market in June. It really completely changed our user acquisition. We got hundreds of thousands of new users in June and July alone. And since then, our acquisition is like 10x or so compared to previous levels. We've only put it out to learn about it so far, what people are doing with it, what types of problems they're using it for, etc. And we've started to make it better. So now we're also doing kind of AI drops, and well, I think only this week we just launched one so that it analyzes also time series, like in financial models and so on, right? So where it wasn't really great at before. And now I think the job is, well, continuing to add skills, but also going deeper into the spreadsheet building experience and the data analysis. So, and that means at some point we will turn to charts and enable you to create charts or entire dashboards, etc., based on your source data, right? And so that, well, there's still some way to go to deliver a really nice and complete experience, but that is kind of the direction that we're taking there.
So as much as possible, kind of having this data analyst that is built into the product that is going to be the best possible data analyst that you can have to help do that job for you, essentially, is where it's going.
Exactly. If you want to have like your junior data analyst that builds you your dashboard or kind of crunches your data in the first place and gets insights, that is what we want to emulate with our analyst. Yeah.
Where do you think that's gonna go with companies and how companies think about building out data analysis teams, and what's going to happen to these jobs, do you think, as AI gets better and more companies are adopting Rose and tools like Rose to help them with this type of thing?
Well, I think that there is kind of the BI function in companies or data function in companies. And I think their products will integrate AI as much as possible as well, but it's a different type of problem, right? If the company is big enough, they are building kind of these train lines or maybe buses or so that are usually ETL flows that deliver data into kind of these dashboards, right? But in the history of business, and I think this won't change, if you ask the first business question after seeing a dashboard, the dashboard will fall apart, right? Like the first, like, why did this change? Or what happens if we do X in the future or so? A dashboard can never answer this question. You will always need to get to the data, and the business user usually needs to get the data into their own hands and then well analyze it or extrapolate it or something, right? And that is done in spreadsheets and will, I think, be done in spreadsheets. So I think of that as rather giving like bikes, or maybe Rose with an AI analyst is an e-bike that we give to a business person, you know, so you can bike around your city and solve your problems faster, right?
Yeah, I love that analogy. Just I ride an e-bike around DC all the time, and it's like when you get an e-bike, there's bike shares around the city, and it's always exciting when there's an e-bike that I can take because it's just so much easier, more convenient to get around with. So
yeah, but if you're a marketer in a larger company or in a scale up, you will also have access to your trains, right? So you will be able to look at this dashboard that business intelligence built for you, right? And this will continue to be the case. But you will always at some point need a bike, right? Or an e-bike.
Yeah, totally. How do you think about the competitive landscape as more and more companies are building AI into their products and kind of giving different taking on, you know, dashboarding and data analysis with AI? How do you think about kind of the positioning of Rose to acquire customers and keep them engaged? Something that I think a lot of people are probably thinking about as they're like, oh, should I build an AI product? And there's so many, and how do you think about the brand positioning there?
Yeah, sure. So I think generally, a spreadsheet is something very, very tough to build. Yeah, it took us years to build a fully fledged spreadsheets, and there are only a handful of companies that have one in the world, right? And so sure, you can build kind of AI products pretty fast and so on, but not a spreadsheet or not something that solves a spreadsheet problem with AI, right? Obviously, other spreadsheets will use AI functionality too, and I think, well, the way I see it, Microsoft already announced their Copilot features, right? I think from a business model standpoint, there's an opportunity for us because they announced the pricing of $30 per user per month, which I think leaves lots of room for others. And then I think our interface, so we have this page that is a bit more Notion-like as a UI compared to Google's and Microsoft's products that are endless grids on the screen. And we think that in the context of AI, we are in a better position with our more modern interface because, where do you put your insights, right? Like, how do you generate a dashboard that actually looks nice or so? I think these types of things are easier in the type of interface that we chose. And then, you know, I think the models and choice of models and so on, this will, that's a different question, but it's also something that we are not wedded to anything, really. We can just, pick the best choice for our use case or, for our customers.
Cool. That makes sense. Yeah, the product is beautiful. And really, I highly recommend everyone listening to go to rose.com and check it out and play around with it and just use it for yourself. And it's free to try for people to use, right? There's no...
Yeah, absolutely. And if you want to try it, you don't even need an account. So you can just go to rose.com. We will immediately give you a spreadsheet that you can start using. And then if you want to save your work, you can create your account and start on our free plan if you want. If you want to then use premium integrations or a lot of integrations or other types of premium features, then we'll ask you to upgrade.
Cool. Awesome. Is there anything else you want to share? Anywhere people can follow you or follow Rose to stay updated?
Yeah, sure. I think rose.com, obviously, right? It's our website. You can follow us on Twitter under RoseHQ. And yeah, I think those are probably the best places. You can also email me to Torben, Torben @rose.com, and ask me any question you want.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Great. Thanks a lot, Seth.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this No Code MBA Show podcast. If you want to build your own AI and no code products, go to nocode.mba and use the promo code podcast10 for 10% off your No Code MBA membership. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode.